everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest. And last night I saw Loki season 2 finale, and wow. Okay, a lot of stuff happened, and we kind of ended in this really. It was a very emotional episode. He kind of said goodbyes to everybody. He had last confrontations with He Who Remains, which was very unexpected. And yeah, basically we ended with Loki is now the Loom, the keeper of the multiverse. I'll be honest, I had to sit there and rewatch the whole second half of this episode a couple times to more fully grasp exactly what is happening. But that's, of course, this whole show, time travel, timey-wimey stuff. Okay, so he goes back to the moment right before the Loom explodes, right before Victor Timely goes out there and spaghettifies. And he keeps on trying to fix the Loom faster and faster and faster, and he does different things, and he goes to even further back, and he tries to get more time, and nothing works. Nothing seems to work. Even when they finally do it successfully, they put the device in there, they press the button, it seems like it should work. It doesn't matter, because the way they describe it is the timelines are growing infinitely, which means the rings on the Loom would also have to be growing infinitely, and they can't do that, so basically they're doomed. The time Loom will never be able to weave all of these different branches together into a timeline that makes sense. And I guess because of that, because it explodes, that is what caused everything to spaghettify, right? All these branches start dying, right? And I think I finally more fully understand that part as well. So, Loki kind of comes to this place where he realizes, okay, I have to go all the way back to the ending of season 1, because, all of this started when Sylvie killed He Who Remains. If I can prevent that from happening, then none of season 2 has to happen. None of this, all the multiverse expanding and then everything spaghettifying, and then now I'm here, So he goes even further back, and he tries to stop Sylvie again and again and again, and then eventually, and this was the most shocking thing and fascinating conversation that they have, he asks He Who Remains, why don't you fight back? Why don't you just stop her? And so he does. He uses his little time pad, and he just stops Sylvie. And he's like, oh, I was wondering when you get here, how many times have we had this conversation? And it turns out, as best as I understand this, because again, there's a lot of hold, wait, what moments during these conversations. As far as I can tell, He Who Remains had accounted, or at least he knew, that once he dies and the branches start forming in the sacred timeline, the time Loom is a failsafe. It is designed so that if it gets overwhelmed, it's going to start deleting all the branches of stuff that's not supposed to be there, except for the sacred timeline, which means the version where he's alive. So I suppose you could say him being alive is part of the sacred timeline, and that's where he gets into reincarnation, because here I am, I'm back, which it's kind of difficult to wrap your head around, especially when you try to account for stuff that he was talking about at the end of season 1, where he's offering them the choice to run the TVA, where he talks about we passed the threshold, now I don't know what's gonna happen. What does that moment mean? How does that connect to what's happening now? I don't know. I gotta sit and think about it a little bit more, because honestly, I'm I don't know if this fully matches up with what was happening at the end. Was that all a lie? Was that a fake offer? Did he know they were gonna try and kill him? Thus, he knows that everything's gonna spaghettify and they're gonna end up back in this moment anyways. Did he know all of that was gonna happen? Maybe. It kind of seems like that's what happened. anyways, basically they just, he just talks about how like, hey, you can kill Sylvie here, right? Which I think is what he was trying to goad them into doing at the end of season 1 anyways. And he's like, you kill her, then I don't die, then we can keep on going with the sacred timeline. Basically just stick to his plan. Keep on pruning branches with the TVA as they've been doing, preventing other kings. But then he says something like, and again, I'm kind of confused, but they're trying to address the fact that, at the end of Quantumania, we see the King Dynasty. They already exist. And he says something to Loki like, oh yeah, as you may or may not know, all my variants are already out there. Which, because now I'm like, okay, hold on. His variants are already out there, so they're, what are they preventing then? I don't know. I need to again, I've watched the scene at least 3 or 4 times, but I'm still kind of confused on if they're trying to prevent the war that he's talking about, but he's also admitting straight up that his variants are already out there in the King Dynasty. How does that make sense? I don't know. Maybe he means they're already out there if you keep on with the branches and stuff and you don't revert back to the sacred timeline. Maybe that's what he means. I don't know. In any case, Loki insists I'll find a way to stop this. Even though he's okay, let Sylvie kill me and we'll keep on trying, right? And so Loki goes off to have a couple of emotional conversations. One with Mobius way back at season 1, when they first met, and he asks him about he tells him this story about a time when he was a hunter and he couldn't prune this kid because it was a little kid, but this kid was supposed to do something bad somehow, but Renslayer was able to prune the kid, and something happened where a couple hunters ended up dying because of this situation. I'd be curious to know if this is actually a reference to some historical event that that we're not aware of. Like he said, oh, it would have led to the deaths of 5,000 people. So I'm like, okay, so what was it though? What exactly happened? I don't know. In any case, he just brings up to Loki purpose usually comes with burden, not glory, because this whole thing about glory is purpose. And then he talks about how sometimes you have to choose your burden, which is really up there. I'm like, oh, whoa. And then he has a conversation with Sylvie, where this is the version of Sylvie right before they all spaghettified at the end of the last episode. And I think it's because this would be the most up-to-date Sylvie. This would be a version of Sylvie who knew that the time loom exploded, right? Anyways, so Sylvie's here, and then everything's spaghettifying just like it did, and he pauses time, and he just asks her well, what do we do? What about free will? And she's like, well, we need the free will, even if that means it's the free will to die, and he's like, well, what good is free will if everyone is dying? It's either we have the sacred timeline or nothing, because the other option is everything eventually spaghettifies like it's doing now, and then she talks about oh, I've lived in apocalypses and I've learned that it's okay to break things sometime. And then he realizes but what if you could try to replace that thing you break with something better, And as best I understand it, what he ends up deciding to do here is he goes back to the moment with the time loom, and he goes out there and he destroys it, which means all the time branches are now dying. There's no sacred timeline, there's no other time branches, everything's just a jumbled mess of dying things. And I suppose that means that they're all slowly spaghettifying. Interestingly enough, the one they're in does not begin to spaghettify, because OB is sitting there everyone's just watching this through the glass, watching Loki go down this thing and grab all these time branches. So I don't quite understand why they're not spaghettifying, but it's fine. I'm sure it'll make sense in a second. And basically, Loki's grabbing all these branches, and he's trying to, like, I guess, jumpstart them, right? Like inject them with energy, I guess, to keep the branches alive, to keep them from spaghettifying and dying. But it doesn't work once he lets go. So he realizes he has to grab all these timeline branches and hold on to them in order to keep his magic flowing into them, I suppose. And he just walks through the portal to the end of time, and he sits on his new throne, which is, it seems to be at the Citadel where He Who Remains was. If you remember, it was kind of falling apart. And so he sits on the throne, and he's got all the time branches, and he's just holding on to them with his green energy going into them, and they kind of swirl into each other and become this tree, like this growing thing. And it seems that, like, now his glorious purpose, his burden, is that he has to sit here alone at the end of time, keeping all of these timelines together, basically preventing, like we can have a multiverse, and we can stop them from spaghettifying. We can stop them from destroying each other. Now, I suppose this is where it means, like, okay, but there are a bunch of Kangs now. There are the Kang dynasty is officially in existence, I suppose. But now we have Loki at the end of time, keeping it all together. There's no more time loom. The time loom was basically designed to explode if there was too much. Like, that was its purpose, really. So now his purpose is to keep this it looks like Yggdrasil, right? This giant tree of time alive. Now, again, I don't fully understand, like, the specifics of how this works or what he's doing to them to keep them alive. I don't know. He kind of mastered time, so I guess we can just say he's doing time magic to keep them alive. I don't know. But basically, as long as he sits there holding everything, nothing is gonna have to end up being spaghettified and destroyed. Like, he's just gonna have to sit there and keep them from dying. So I guess from now on, anything you see, including the Marvels, it's only possible because Loki is sitting in that chair and he's holding on to time. Anyways, so we see a little bit of an epilogue. We see the TVA. They have a poster that says "Grow Together," and they're like watering this giant time tree. So they seem to be fully aware of, like, what's happening. Even the monitors have changed. Instead of being a timeline, it's the tree, and they're just like, I guess they're just watching it and looking after Kangs. And they mention real quick, they're like, do the Kangs even know we exist? They're like, no, they don't seem to know we exist yet. And there was one on a what do they call it? A side realm of 616, which I guess the quantum realm, right? So I guess that's the way of explaining that the quantum realm does exist within 616 of that version. And they're like, well, one of them was causing trouble there, but they took care of it. So, I guess that's their explaining away of Quantumania, of, like, how that Kang was just there, and like our main series heroes took care of that version. But yeah, I guess they're still hunting down Kangs, and they're all just, instead of pruning TVA, I guess this is just like they're gonna protect the multiverse, I suppose. I'm sure this will all come back in Deadpool 3, because that's like the big rumors that the TVA and everything's gonna be involved there. The interesting thing, also, speaking of rumors, the rumor at the time was that Miss Minutes was gonna be a villain of Deadpool 3, but this one kind of ends with her rebooted and, like, not evil. I mean, they kind of joke, like, do we know that she's not gonna try to kill us all? And Obi's like, I don't know. So, but it ends on a very uplifting note, so I don't think she's evil now. This rebooted Miss Minutes. So then we have basically Mobius decides to go back to what his life would have been, right? Like, he sees a version, the version of himself who has kids and lives in a house and has a normal life. And Sylvie's there saying, like, oh yeah, he had to find out, And they kind of like part ways, and Sylvie's like, I don't know what I'll do. I'll go figure out what I'm doing. And then Mobius is like, yeah, I guess after all this time I had to figure out what it is we've been protecting all these years, because he's never really, they established he's never really been on the sacred timeline. He's never like tried to look into what his life was or what any of this was for. His whole life was the TVA. And so now basically it's just that they have free will. Sylvie is out there on a branch. Maybe she went back to McDonald's, or I don't know. she'll be manager of that McDonald's eventually. And then Mobius, I guess he's just gonna go live his life, even if it's on a branch that already has a version of him on it. He's probably just gonna go get a jet ski, I imagine. That's what they should have done. They should have had him like drive away in a jet ski. Anyways, and yeah, that's pretty much where we end things. Loki is all alone, and it's real sad in that kind of way, but also like it's like this real heroic act of like, I'm just gonna sit here and I'm gonna hold on to all the timelines to keep them from dying. And he kind of became like the ultimate hero, right? Like that. How much like he literally saved the multiverse from dying. So like there's kind of no one upping that, I guess, is my thing. Like no matter how cool of an action sequence any superhero does now, it's like, yeah, but that's only because Loki's sitting there in that chair holding all this together. Like if he could let go of like one timeline, oh, that's gone, oops. So like there's kind of no one upping the amount of heroism that he's doing in this moment, I guess, now forever. So yeah, that's kind of where we end things. It's very much a finality to the Loki as a series. Like I don't know what would you even do for season 3, right? Like he's become as powerful as you can get, I guess, right? Like I don't know what else you could do to outmatch this version of Loki. And I don't know where the story would go from here, except for our normal superheroes going up against Kang variants in the King Dynasty, which I gotta be honest, after seeing all this, that seems kind of like that seems kind of quaint at this point, like, oh, the King Dynasty's out there, and the TVA is just like, yeah, we'll get them, we'll just keep hunting them down, we'll do the thing. It just doesn't seem like, I'm like, guys, Loki is holding the multiverse together. Like I don't know, like the whole idea of Kangs now, like unless they come up with some plan, unless they become aware of Loki and then they try to like do something about that, I just don't see how the Kangs are a threat at this point, right? Like a serious threat, which in regards to rumors that they were trying to pivot away from Kang and all this other stuff, this kind of feels like they have an out, like it kind of feels like they could easily be like, the TVA hunted them down one by one, and now we can move on to a different bad guy, because like this is kind of it. Like they solved all the problems. Loki ended up doing like the most selfless thing you could do, and yeah, the TVA is now like a much better version of itself. So in a similar way to like they destroyed the time loom and created a better version, now they kind of like destroyed the TVA and created a better version, right? Like now there's this new TVA who's like all about helping the multiverse grow and like letting it be a thing, Renslayer, they don't show it, but it's implied that she gets destroyed by Alioth, which I think they needed to just like, because we would have been questioning like, wait, whatever happened to her? So I think it's good to like just leave that implication there. That way it's like, okay, so that's over. And yeah, that's where we're at. That was a really great finale, and I think they've already come out and said that they don't plan on there being a season 3, or at least the writers don't. Who knows what Disney will decide. And I just gotta say, like, I think these 2 seasons of this show have been easily like some of the best Marvel content we've gotten in a long time. And I just did my review of the Marvels about how that one is taking the blunt, I think the emotional blunt of like a lot of people's frustrations about the MCU as a whole, about where we're at, and how like hey, things used to be really, really great all the time, and now they've just been kind of wishy-washy for the last like 4 years. But yeah, this Loki show just like stands above everything that we've gotten, and somehow amidst all the, you know, bad to just okay content that they've released in the last few years, somehow this Loki show came out, and it's like the greatest thing ever. So yeah, I'm just really happy with this finale, and let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.